I guess we'll get started. I mean, I really enjoyed doing this segment on how we make decisions, distinguishing between the voice of the true self and the false self. And if you'll remember at the end of the last session, somebody had asked about how can I control which one I choose? And when we get to this point where we're trying to make a decision and we have these contending options, how do I do that? So the answer is pretty simple, but it's hard to do as usual. The basic answer is that we practice and practice and practice so that when those options come up, we can recognize them and more easily choose to pause and ponder how we're going to respond. When doing that, we circumvent the habitual response, which is the voice of the false self. But at the time that it happens, the thing we have to override is our tendency to just react spontaneously, react habitually. Because when we do that, we're almost always going to choose a habitual pattern and something from our inauthentic self. That's a basic answer too. The more we practice and the more we're in a mindfulness space, mindfulness meditation, the more awareness we bring to our inner workings, and the more apt we are to recognize what's happening when it's happening. So what we're going to do today, we're going to do a mindfulness meditation, kind of an extended one, with an exercise of paying attention to exactly what's going on in the mind when a thought comes up, and attempting to do it slowly enough and with repetition enough so we increase our ability to be able to pause when something comes up, and better able to distinguish between A and B. Acceptable, not acceptable. So it's an extension of what we do, but we're going to focus on that particular process today, because I think that's really important. The more we're able to pause and the more awareness we have about what's going on inside, the more apt we are to be able to pause, and then in that pause, more likely to choose the true self in the process. Because we can rest assured when we're really anxious about something, we can't think of it's this, or what am I going to do, and what about this, and we feel there's no answer, and we don't, and wear ourselves out, and we kind of get bummed out by it. Maybe I should just, and then we say, oh, heck with it, I'll just do this. That's usually the false self. I'll just think about it and we'll see what happens. That's usually the false self. So pausing is crucial to the process, because as we've talked about before, that when we pause, we actually bring our neocortex online, our abstract reasoning part of our brain. And if we don't do that, then we're just relying on habitual patterns, the way we've always done things, the way we always responded. That's basically it. With practice, and this is something you can practice, what we'll be doing will be, you can practice at home. And when we practice this, it really gets easier. And a lot of times we just have to, how do I say this? When we do get indecision, when we're struck by indecision, let's say, we can learn to recognize that, just sit down and be quiet, maybe, just kind of just sit for a little bit and see what happens. Now, sometimes we can't do that, we're in the moment, and somebody asks you to do something on the run, and you get that queasy feeling in your tummy, and you don't really want to say yes, but you don't want to say no. And so sometimes you have to do this quickly. That's why practice is so important, because the more practice this and making this decision in this way, that the easier it'll be in the moment. And that's where it really counts the most. If we're sitting by ourselves and we get caught with a thought, not much of a problem. But we're in real life and having to make a decision and somebody suggested something we don't really want to do, it's a little more complicated. That's what I thought we'd do. So I guess we'll start. Because we've gone over this concept quite a bit over the time, so I don't have a lot more to add to it at the moment. When afterwards, it'll be interesting to see what comes up for people and how you handle it in the moment, because what we're really talking about is learning how to use our brain and how to use the faculties that we've been given as a human being. And I think that's pretty cool that we can actually do that. Okay, so places, everyone. Find a comfortable position. You don't have to move any muscles to maintain your position. And we can begin. I'm kind of settling into the sound, fading, coming to rest, coming into stillness. Our own space of stillness. And just letting everything settle down. Our body and our pulse and our heart. Coming to rest in just being as best we can. And each time a thought or a feeling or a distraction comes up, letting it go. And returning our awareness to the present moment. Sometimes it helps to bring our awareness to the points of contact with the chair or the floor or wherever we're sitting. To remind ourselves that our bodies are always present right here, right now. And allowing the breath to take its own rhythm. And you may notice that the breath slows and deepens sometimes. And allowing ourselves a release from the world's considerations and the internal and external machinations of that. And each time we let go of a thought or a feeling, noticing that there's a space between that and the next thought or feeling. even if it's only half a second or so. That space is there. And the more we practice recognizing, releasing, and returning, the easier it gets. The brain just loves to jump around. And it may continue to do so for a little while. And that's okay. The important thing is to recognize when a thought has arisen and release it, letting go, surrendering, and coming back to the present moment. And some thoughts may be particularly sticky. They don't want to go, or they come back seconds after you've released it. And that's okay. That's just the way the brain is working. And this is bringing the mind into a state of relaxed responding. Because at the moment, I would assume there's nothing urgent to attend to. Nothing that needs a decision right now, or any attention in order to resolve it. Whether it's a long-standing issue, even if it's trauma, or really big decisions that are impending our input. But right now, in the next few moments, none of that really needs our attention. And so letting go is the basic activity, if you could call it that, of this process. But it's not really a doing, it's a commitment to not doing. Like in the middle of a tennis game, putting down your racket and walking off the court. We just let the thoughts and the feelings go as they arise, if we can. And each time we do this, we further create the ability to, whenever a thought arises, no matter how intense it may be, of just recognizing it as a thought and letting it go. And if it's a very difficult process for you at the moment, that's okay. We have biorhythms in the phases of the moon and other things to consider. So sometimes the brain is not all that cooperative, but we just do it anyway. There may be a constant stream of thoughts. A lot of times there's what they call racing thoughts, and if that's the case, seeing if you can just take a step back and watch them go without letting them hook you in the process. So after a while we get the idea, whether the idea is that arises, the thought that arises, is of large importance or of small importance, it doesn't matter. Recognizing it as a thought is what matters, and releasing it is the proper action. And if there's any resistance that comes up, like I'm tired, or this is boring, or I've already done this before, whatever it may be, that's okay. That is also just a thought. That as we release it, when we release the thought, it just wanders off and disappears. And if the mind gets too bothered coming back to the body, and wiggling your toes or whatever you need to do to get back in the physical body, in the stillness of the body, just sitting. And grounding again there as best you can before going back to this process. And continuing with this, exercising our true will to recognize and release thoughts as they arise and return to the present moment. If you want to, you can think of it as a waltz. Recognize, release, and return. 1, 2, 3. And the more we persist, the easier it gets. And often the habits of our false self will intensify and bring forward more intense, attractive or repulsive thoughts. But each thought is no more real than an image on a screen, no matter how terrible or beautiful it may be. And we proceed with a gentle determination to just do this as best we can. Allowing ourselves a little bit of grace in the process, that we have these exercises to do now. They're available to us and help us with our fundamental relationship with the world and ourselves and others. Learning how to use our minds well. And the more we do this, it tends to get easier. We start building the habit. Just recognizing, releasing, and returning. So in this space, for a little further practice, bringing to mind an orange. Any old orange. Noticing its color, its texture. Doesn't matter where it came from or where it's going. It just is at the moment. I'm bringing to mind all the thoughts and the feelings and the senses involved in an orange. Whatever it brings up for you. And bringing all of your awareness to it. How the color feels. Maybe even wondering about its origins, or the fact that there is even an orange, how it was ever created. But all the thoughts and the feelings and the bodily sensations that are evoked with this orange. And noticing the state that you're in, appreciating this orange. And in the fullness of your response to this image, this thought of an orange, now letting it go. And returning your awareness to the present moment. And as the orange persists in your mind, letting it go each time. in full awareness of what happens when we let it go. It just wanders off and disappears. And we may want it to return because it was a pleasant experience. But letting that thought go as well, if it arises, or any other thought about the orange or feelings that were evoked. Because each one of those are just thoughts also. Until every last little thought or feeling or sensation about the orange is let go. And each time we return, resting our awareness in this space between thoughts for however long we can. Whether it's just a moment or a few seconds or more. Resting there. As best we can, letting our full awareness come to bear on this space between thoughts. And knowing that this space between thoughts is like seeing the night sky when there's no light around on the earth, or walking into a cathedral. Even though there seems to be nothing there per se. There clearly is something there, but we don't necessarily know what it is. And that's okay. Allowing ourselves to rest there in awareness of this space as best we can. allowing ourselves to just be there, relaxed and aware. And knowing that this space is always there. And we can access it at any time. Whether when sitting for a while or in an instant when we need to make a decision. Knowing so that when we connect our awareness with this space, it forms a complete circle. And we can rest in that space at any time and always if we wish. And now the exercise drawing to conclusion in its fullness. And absorbing the experience fully. And letting it go. And allowing it to be absorbed, letting the body absorb it like a sponge absorbs water. So that in a moment when the bell rings again, you can bring this with you as you go about your day and come back to it at any time.